My parents called me selfish for refusing to raise my sister's kid, so I vanished, then made sure they'd regret ever choosing her over me. I am a 27-year-old guy, and I've always been the backup plan in my family. If Emily wanted it, she got it. If I wanted something, I was told to wait, to compromise, to understand. She was the golden child, straight A's, cheer squad, college scholarships, the one my parents beamed about in church and showed off in every Facebook post. Me? I was the kid who had potential, but just needed to try harder. When we were 12 and 14, she got anxiety over sharing a room, so I was moved into the unfinished basement while she got my space upstairs, fully redecorated, of course.
I remember my dad shrugging, saying, "You're a guy."
You'll survive. I was literally sleeping next to the laundry machines. If we fought, it was always my fault. Even when she screamed, cursed, or threw stuff, somehow I had provoked her. Once she poured orange juice on my laptop, and my mum said, well, maybe don't push her buttons. Birthdays were the worst. Hers were full-blown events, balloons, catered food, all her friends.
Mine, store-brand cake and an envelope with $20.
If I looked disappointed, I was labelled ungrateful. Be happy for what you have, they'd snap, while handing Emily the keys to her new iPhone. By the time I hit high school, I stopped asking for things.
Stopped expecting them to take my side.
I became quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't come from shyness, but from knowing your voice doesn't matter. I didn't realize how much that dynamic shaped me until years later, but when it came time for them to ask something big.
Not for Emily, not for themselves.
For her kid, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then I was just the brother in the basement, the one who helped with chores, ran errands, and kept his mouth shut while the real star got everything she ever wanted. And it was only the beginning. Emily got pregnant at 21. No husband, no boyfriend, just a vague story about how things didn't work out and the father wasn't going to be around.
My parents were crushed.
For about 5 minutes. After that, they went straight into damage control mode, pretending it was just a bump in the road for their perfect daughter. They never once asked how it happened.
Never questioned her choices.
The narrative quickly became, she's brave, she's doing this alone. She needs our full support. I was 19 at the time. A full-time college student juggling 2 part-time jobs buried in student loans. I got a call from my mum while walking to class, and I still remember her exact words. You're going to need to step up now. I blinked. Step up? What does that even mean? She sighed like I was dense. Emily's going to need help. You'll be moving back home to help with the baby. It's time to be a man, I laughed, an actual laugh, because I thought it was a joke. But she wasn't joking. Neither was my dad when he followed up later, talking about family duty and how blood comes first. When I said no, that I had school, that I wasn't going to raise a kid that wasn't mine, they flipped. Suddenly I was the selfish one. I was abandoning family, turning my back, letting a child suffer. My mom even cried, saying, I didn't raise a son this cold. My dad said Emily made one mistake, and now she was doing the brave thing by keeping the baby, unlike a lot of girls these days. They started comparing me to her, how she owned her consequences, while I was running from mine, as if I was the one who got someone pregnant.
As if I owed them another sacrifice. I held out for a while.
But guilt is a powerful drug when it's spoon-fed by the people who are supposed to love you, and eventually
I said yes. Moving back home was supposed to be temporary.
I told myself it was just for the first few months, to support Emily while she adjusted. But it didn't take long to realize that support actually meant take over entirely. Within 2 weeks, I was doing feedings at 3 a.m., changing diapers on 2 hours of sleep, and rocking a screaming infant while trying to study for midterms with one hand. Emily? She was barely home. She'd leave for a quick coffee and come back 5 hours later with her hair done and a shopping bag in her hand. She said she needed me time or she'd go crazy. Some nights, she didn't even come back, just texted that she was staying at a friend's place. My parents didn't blink. "She's young," my mom would say, pouring herself tea. "She needs her freedom. What about me?"
I asked once. My dad didn't even look up from the TV. "You're the uncle. It's different. Uncle." That word rang in my ears every time the baby cried and no one else moved.
Every time I had to cancel plans. Every time I handed Emily her child and she wrinkled her nose. Like I'd just given her a used napkin. I lost count of the nights I stayed awake just rocking the baby while listening to her laugh through the walls on a phone call. And I didn't complain, not at first, because some part of me thought maybe, just maybe, doing this would finally earn me their respect, or their love, or something. Then I missed a job interview I'd waited months for. Emily was supposed to come home and watch the baby. She never showed. No call, no apology. Just a text. "OMG, sorry, forgot." That was the day something cracked inside me. I wasn't the uncle anymore. I was the unpaid, unwanted dad, and no one gave a damn. It had been over a year, a full year of bottles, fevers, diaper blowouts, sleepless nights, and being blamed for everything that went wrong. A year of missing job opportunities, losing friends, and waking up every day in a house that felt more like a trap than a home.
I wasn't living, I was surviving.
And no one even noticed. One morning, I found myself washing formula off my only clean shirt before a class presentation while Emily waltzed in.
Hungover and giggling about some guy she'd met the night before. That was it. Something inside me just
Gave out. That night, I sat my family down.
I told them I was done. "I never agreed to be her father," I said, my voice shaking. "I came back to help, not to give up my life." Emily's eyes welled up immediately, her lip quivering. "So you're just abandoning her after everything?" "She's not my kid, Emily," I snapped.
"You're her mother."
"Start acting like one." My mum gasped like I'd slapped her.
"Don't you dare raise your voice."
"After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us."
My dad stood up, face red. "You're a man?
Men don't run away."
You think this is noble? It's cowardice."
"You're just like your uncle. Couldn't handle responsibility, so he vanished too." Emily started sobbing louder, playing the victim like a well-rehearsed role. "I trusted you."
I didn't say another word. I just turned, walked to my room, and started packing. My mum followed, yelling about how I was tearing the family apart. My dad blocked the front door with his arms crossed like a prison guard. But I didn't stop.
I shoved past him.
For the first time in my life, I didn't ask for permission. I left. No hugs.
No apologies.
Just the sound of Emily crying and my mum screaming, "You're no better than a deadbeat."
As the door slammed behind me, but the worst part, I started to believe them. I didn't tell anyone where I went.
I packed what little I had, took a bus across state lines, and moved into a tiny apartment with two strangers I met on a roommate app. It was a cramped, half-furnished unit with paper-thin walls and a leaky faucet in the bathroom, but it felt like freedom. For the first time in years, no one was yelling at me, calling me selfish, or handing me a baby like it was my job. I worked night shifts at a gas station, delivered food in the mornings. During the day, I applied to jobs like a man possessed. Most nights I came home too tired to even eat. But I was finally living for myself, even if it meant eating ramen 5 nights a week and falling asleep in a sleeping bag on the floor. And slowly,
I started breathing again.
I didn't realize how heavy everything had been until I was no longer under it. The guilt, the shame, the constant pressure to fix a mess I didn't make. I blocked every number from my family, changed my phone, deleted Facebook.
I was a ghost, and I liked it that way.
There were no birthday texts, no updates about the baby, no passive-aggressive messages from my mum, just silence. Then 6 months in, my phone rang. It was a local number I didn't recognize.
I almost declined it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. "Hi, is this OP?"
A woman's voice asked. "You're listed as the emergency contact for Lily, last name. She's running a fever and needs to be picked up from daycare." I froze. The name hit me like a brick to the chest. Lily, my niece. Before I could respond, the woman added, We've tried reaching her mother, but she's not answering. And that's when I realized they never really let me go. I showed up at the daycare, still dazed, heart pounding, unsure what I was even going to say. The staff greeted me like I was expected. One of them handed me a clipboard and said, "Just sign here, Dad." I blinked. "Dad?" She looked confused.
Aren't you Lily's father?
It felt like the ground slipped out from under me. "No, I'm her uncle." She frowned and flipped through a folder. "Your name is on the birth certificate. You're listed as the legal guardian if the mother's unreachable." I demanded to see the file. There it was, my full name in black ink under the father field.
My signature at the bottom.
Except I never signed anything. Not even close. I left in a fog, clutching copies of the documents they let me take.
I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking.
I texted Emily, no reply.
Called my mom.
Straight to voicemail. Later that week, my manager pulled me into a meeting.
HR got an anonymous tip, he said, eyes narrowed.
That you abandoned your daughter and left her in state care. My stomach dropped. I tried explaining, tried showing the copies I had from the daycare, but HR just said we're not accusing you.
Just be aware this stuff circulates, the rumor was out.
Someone, Emily, my mom, maybe both, had decided to rewrite the narrative.
I wasn't just the selfish brother who walked away. I was now the deadbeat dad who abandoned his own child. And the worst part?
People believed it, because who questions a crying mother? Who doubts a daughter and her parents, especially when the supposed father is nowhere to be found? That night, I sat in my car until the sun went down, gripping the fake paperwork in my lap. They hadn't just used me, they'd erased me and built a lie in my place. I realized that half measures wouldn't work. Changing my number once wasn't enough. Deleting social media, moving to a new city, switching jobs, I had to erase every trace they could grab onto.
Every connection, every breadcrumb, every thread that tied me back to them had to go.
It wasn't about being dramatic anymore. It was about survival. The daycare document still haunted me. I filed a police report for fraud, explaining that someone had forged my signature and listed me as a legal guardian without consent. The officer was polite, but the weight of it hit me. I might have to take legal action to truly sever their hold. Threatening court, lawyers, and paperwork, things I had avoided for years, became my reality. And for the first time, I wasn't backing down. Then the messages started.
Emails, texts, even letters.
Your niece asks about you.
She misses you. Why won't you see her?
You left her too. My mom's words dripped guilt like poison. Part of me wanted to respond, to explain, to apologize. But I knew better. This was manipulation. They wanted me to feel responsible again, to return to the life I'd finally left behind. And part of me, deep down, ached anyway.
It hurt a lot, so I blocked every number.
Every account. Every last way for them to reach me. No exceptions. I became a ghost, a phantom of the brother they had used, a man who existed only in his own terms. Sitting alone in my apartment that night,
I realized something. I wasn't just vanishing from their lives. I was vanishing to prepare.
Preparing to build a life that they couldn't touch. Preparing to reclaim control, dignity, and maybe one day to make sure they understood what it meant to lose me. Because this wasn't the end of the story, not by a long shot. And I had plans that would guarantee they would regret ever trying to write me into their lies. Once I vanished, I didn't just hide.
I rebuilt.
Night shifts turned into day shifts, which turned into a full-time position with room for growth. I hustled, learned every corner of my industry, and finally landed a promotion that allowed me to move into a decent apartment, one with walls that didn't leak, a door that locked, and space that felt like mine.
I even started therapy.
For the first time in years, I could process the constant guilt, the anger, the shame, and the grief without being interrupted by someone else's drama. Slowly, I was becoming whole again, but I didn't forget. Not really.
I knew they hadn't either.
I began documenting everything that had happened, the emails my mum sent, screenshots of Emily's texts, forged forms from the daycare, the lies I'd heard from relatives. I made folders, kept dates, and backed up every piece of evidence. Every time I glanced at that growing stack, a part of me smiled.
Knowledge is power. I also started researching
Guardianship laws, inheritance loopholes,
legal boundaries.
what they could and couldn't do. The more I learned, the more I realized just how much control they'd assumed over my life, and how easily I could reclaim it if I played my cards right. One night, I reconnected with a cousin who had quietly watched from the sidelines.
They're telling everyone you abandoned your niece, she whispered.
Mom and Emily have been spreading it since you left. My chest tightened, but her words didn't surprise me. They'd tried to rewrite my entire existence before. That was the moment I made a decision.
I wasn't just going to survive anymore. I wasn't just going to protect myself.
I was going to make them feel what it meant to lose someone completely, and this time I'd plan every move so carefully that by the time they realized what they'd lost, it would be too late. It happened on a rainy Thursday. My phone buzzed with a message from a cousin I barely talked to. Mom had a stroke. You should know. My chest tightened, stomach dropping like I'd been punched. Every muscle tensed, memories flooding back, the yelling, the blame, the guilt that never left. Part of me wanted to run to her side. Part of me wanted to stay far away and keep the fragile peace I'd built. Then my phone rang. It was Emily. Her voice was frantic, shaky, almost pleading.
Please, come home. I can't handle this. We need you. She's all alone, I froze. I hadn't spoken to her in months. I hadn't answered her calls, texts, or her manipulations.
And yet her voice had this pull, this desperate human pull that reminded me why I'd left in the first place. My hands were shaking as I debated. Do I break my hard-won boundaries for a mother I barely saw but still cared about?
Against my better judgment, I went.
The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. The machines beeped rhythmically, a constant reminder of fragility. I found my mom lying in bed, frail, eyes half closed, with Emily hovering anxiously beside her. I felt a pang of guilt, even though I knew it was misplaced. I wanted to help, I really did, but the moment I was introduced as back to take responsibility, my chest tightened. I overheard Emily whispering to the nurse, "He's finally here."
He'll handle everything like he should. That's when I realized they hadn't changed.
They still expected me to sacrifice my life for them, to be the father, the caretaker, the fixer of every problem they created. That night, after quietly checking on my mum and making sure she was stable, I walked out. Again. I left Emily's pleading behind.
I left their expectations, their lies, their guilt, and this time I knew.
It was for good. After walking out of the hospital that night, I knew I needed something concrete.
Words wouldn't protect me anymore.
Feelings wouldn't keep them from dragging me back in. I secretly met with an attorney, explaining the entire history, every text, every forged document, every lie they had spread. My goal was simple: remove myself from any financial or legal responsibility tied to my family.
I needed to make it impossible for them to manipulate me again. What I discovered shocked me.
My parents had quietly added my name to documents without my consent, power of attorney over Emily's child, future custody clauses, even certain financial accounts. They had built a legal web designed to trap me, using the law as a weapon against the very person they claimed was selfish. My blood ran cold as I realized just how far they had gone to control me.
Even from miles away, I revoked everything.
Every single document, every claim, every authority they tried to wield over me. I filed fraud claims where necessary, sent certified notices, and set legal firewalls around my life. It wasn't just about protection, it was about reclaiming power. Then after all the paperwork was done, I sent them one final email. Short, direct, brutally honest. From now on, consider me legally and emotionally deceased to you. Do not contact me. Do not involve me in your affairs.
I am no longer your property. I waited, half expecting an angry reply, a guilt-laden plea, or some desperate attempt at manipulation. Nothing, just silence, and it felt
Perfect. For the first time in decades, I didn't owe anyone anything. Not apologies, not explanations, not my time, not my life. I had erased the lines they had drawn for me, broken the chains they had built, and reclaimed my freedom. They had no control.
No leverage, nothing. And I realized with a quiet, almost frightening satisfaction that this silence was mine.
All mine. 5 years passed. 5 years of waking up without guilt pressing on my chest, without someone dictating how I spent my time, without constant emotional blackmail. I started my own small business, a digital marketing consultancy with nothing but my laptop, my brain, and relentless determination. Slowly, steadily, it grew. Clients came through referrals, then word of mouth. I began to gain visibility in my field, respected for my work ethic and reliability, not for the family name I had been cursed with. Then, something unexpected happened. A podcast, a true crime, human interest type, anonymously featured my story. My voice wasn't on it.
I never gave interviews.
They just told my tale, the ugly truths of family manipulation, betrayal, and reclaiming one's life. It went viral. Thousands of messages poured in, some for advice, some sharing similar experiences, others just expressing sheer empathy.
I read every one of them, my chest tightening with a strange mix of vindication and relief.
People finally understood. Then karma quietly slipped in. A client, new at the time, turned out, completely unknowingly, to be Emily's employer. Within a month, they discovered she had lied on her resume, exaggerated credentials, and withheld key information about her past work.
She was fired.
Word traveled fast. I learned about it weeks later, and I didn't even have to lift a finger. Life had a way of balancing itself without my interference. Soon after, my parents tried reaching out again. Emails, calls, even a handwritten letter.
But I didn't open a single one.
I let them sit in the digital grave I'd created for their control, and I smiled. Because the truth was simple. You raised your golden child. Now live with her. For the first time I realized I wasn't just free.
I was untouchable.
And they were finally tasting what it felt like to lose someone they'd tried so hard to own. I often think back to the boy who was always expected to sacrifice. The boy who had to give up his room, his time, his opportunities, his voice, all so that someone else, Emily, my parents, could shine. That boy lived in the basement, worked nights, and carried burdens that weren't his. He learned early that love came with conditions, and that family could be cruel when wrapped in smiles and excuses. But that boy grew up. He built walls, yes, but also built a life that was truly his own. Today, I have boundaries that no one can cross. I have relationships and a future family that I chose, not that was assigned to me. I wake up each morning knowing I answer only to myself, that my time, my energy, my love is mine to give or withhold, and I give it intentionally. I mentor foster kids who were left behind, abandoned like I once felt. I sponsor single mums who are doing the impossible on their own. I use my experience, my scars, and the hard lessons of my youth to help others carve out lives of dignity, independence, and self-respect. It's my way of taking the suffering I endured and turning it into something meaningful. I still hear their voices sometimes, the guilt-tripping, the accusations, the demands. But now they're like echoes from another life, distant and powerless.
I don't respond. I don't flinch. I am finally free of them, free of their narrative, free of their control. And I say this with absolute clarity. I'm not her kid's father.
I'm my own man. I close my laptop, lean back in my chair, and for the first time in decades, breathe without apology. The past shaped me, but it doesn't own me. Fade to black. I am untouchable, unshakable, unapologetically free.